Good morning and welcome to this review for Anne McCaffrey's Survivors, Dinosaur Planet II. Once again with some beautiful wraparound artwork and by the same artist who did the first Dinosaur Planet. Okay, so this review is going to be in 3 stages. If you haven't read it yet, then I'll start off with stuff that can't spoiler this one or indeed the last one, but then I'll get more spoilery and I'll warn you. If you plan to read it, I'm not sure that I necessarily would recommend that you read it either. It's not a terrible book, but it's not Anne McCaffrey's best writing. Neither of them are. If you are an Anne McCaffrey completionist, sure, read it. If you really love your old school science fiction and fantasy, bearing in mind this is from the 80s, so it's, in my head at least, sort of bordering on modern science fiction, it might be for you. The pacing is perhaps a bit older than the actual books are. And if you really want more dinosaur-themed things to read, there aren't anywhere near enough dinosaurs in this to make me happy, but that might be another reason you would read it. If you decide to read the Dinosaur Planet, my recommendation would be an omnibus. So Survivors, the second one, came out in 1984 as a sequel to Dinosaur Planet from 1978. But a lot of people must have agreed with me that they are essentially one story, part 1, part 2. Because in 1985, only a year after this first came out, it was published in one omnibus edition called the Arita Adventure. And I think that if you're going to read the first one, you probably need the second one, because the first book doesn't really have an ending per se, and as such, you'll want this one for completion's sake. And if you're going to read one, you might as well read both. In my opinion, this one is slightly better than the first. I think it's slightly better written. It's a bit bigger. The pacing is better. It certainly has more action. And it's got more characters as well. It's by no means my favourite book of the year or the month. It's by no means my favourite Anne McCaffrey. But I am glad that I reread it, because I honestly wouldn't have remembered it at all. So, before I get into spoilers, I'm going to add a quote that is credited to Dave Langford, who was a reviewer for White Dwarf magazine in the 80s and 90s, I think, as well, and he's an author in his own right. He's a UK writer. When he reviewed it, he said that the novel is a straight science fiction adventure, and unlike McCaffrey's other work, like Pern work, which tends to have a more fantasy bent to it. And he also says that McCaffrey never seems interested in it, unlike her romantic science fiction fantasy titles with dragons and singers. He calls her writing slipshod, and I agree with him. Neither of these books feel to me like the author was seriously engaged with the characters at all. And there are inconsistencies to her writing with the characters, yes, but in other small ways that for the observant reader might be jarring, because you'll read one thing and then just a few chapters later you read something else that doesn't really zig with the zag, if you see what I'm saying. So do I think you should read it? You can. I'm not necessarily recommending it. Are you reading it? Great, I want to hear what you think. Did you read it and love it? Well, I'm going to tell you, you're in the minority on Goodreads, because most of the people who read it thought it was okay, and some of them thought it was dreadful. It isn't dreadful, but it is not much better than okay. Okay, on to mild spoilers. If you have not read the first Dinosaur Planet, probably, and you think you want to, maybe go away and read it and then come back. If you're not going to read it, or if you have already read it, let's go. So Survivors starts where Dinosaur Planet finishes. And Dinosaur Planet finishes when the human light worlders have managed to escape the heavy world mutineers in the old camp. They have taken the shuttle, escaped from the dinosaur stampede that was heading toward the encampment, and which the heavy worlders planned to use to disguise the fact that they'd mutinied. Now, the two co-leaders of the previous expedition were Kai and Varian. By the way, if you haven't watched my previous review, you probably want to, because I'm not going to repeat too much from there. Kai and Varian were the two co-leaders of the original exploration team, and they've both escaped. Only one member of the last party died, and it's all his fault really, because he was collaborating with the mutineers. Very Hollywood. Only the bad guys die. The kids were roughed up. Most of the adults were as well, but they have escaped. Where they escape to is they hide their shuttle in this cave that Varian had previously discovered while she was investigating the colony of these winged dinosaurs that showed signs of intelligence, such as tool building, net weaving. Tool use is one of the hallmarks of intelligence, and it seems to me that the Dinosaur Planet team were insufficiently enthusiastic to find a species that is weaving nets and collaborating on fishing for their young. That was major. I don't understand why Anne McCaffrey didn't make more of it, but she didn't. And bear in mind, at the end of that book and at the beginning of this book, we still don't know what type of dinosaur that is meant to be. Anne McCaffrey is very, very hands-off with revealing names, and I don't think we ever got a name for this particular species. Avian dinosaur. So the team got their little shuttle there, and they headed, and they all went into cold sleep. This book starts just as Kai, who's the male co-leader of the party, is woken up by a Thek. A Thek is one of the other sentient species that are part of the 18 sentient species of the Federated Sentient Planets. That's Anne McCaffrey's universe building. The Thek is not a carbon-based life form like us. He's a silicon-based life form. And McCaffrey images that as being very slow of speech and slow of action. And she's actually got quite a nice idea about this species. They have got shared memories, shared race memories, but each family, each lineage shares that lineage's memory as well. They don't communicate well with humans, and they don't much like ephemeral species. They're difficult for them. Now, our survivors of the mutiny did send a message to the Thek. We believe it wasn't terribly well written, but we believe they did. And so when Kai is being woken up by one, it's not terribly shocking. He's drawn out of cold sleep. He draws one other person out of cold sleep. Or is it two more people out of cold sleep? Anyway, the Thek is called Tor. And he has a long association with Kai's family. We learned in the last book that he occasionally confuses Kai with his grandfather or great-grandfather. And Tor is there for one purpose. Not to rescue our survivors or give them any aid. Oh, no. He wants to know where this particular transmitter that the team had unearthed came from. And he takes Kai back to to their first encampment to search for this device. Kai goes back willingly. They've got power packs, and he believes that if he gets to the sleds, then he can put a power pack in the sled, and then they can have a little bit more mobility. All through this, they have got no idea how long they've been in cold sleep. It might have been a year, it might have been 100 years. You can't ask Thek because the Thek don't have the same concept of time as us, being as how they live. Who knows for how long, but definitely thousands of years. All their chronos have gone blank. They don't know. So Kai goes back there with Thek, and he finds a sled, and we know that he's about to get all that in progress, and then we're back with the team. Where there three people are awake now, I think. It's Kai, his co-leader Varian, and the medic Lunzi. 3 of the 4 disciplines. Discipline is this mental discipline that Anne McCaffrey has invented for her future. It's quite an interesting concept. A bit similar to something that has been done by other science fiction writers, but no worse for that. Now, Varian is continually interested in the dinosaurs in whose colony they've hidden their shuttle. And the continuation of the intelligence of this species is, to my mind, one of the best things about these two books. But it's fairly light on the ground still. McCaffrey seems to prefer humans and their doings, and while we get some dinosaur, like David Langford said, she just doesn't seem that interested. So I relish those bits of dinosaur when you get them. What is the dinosaur? She still hasn't bothered to tell us. Yay. Anyway, we have a whole lot of argy-bargy, people do things, stuff happens, and then while Varian is searching through the remnants of their previous camps, she finds a garden in which one of the mutineers has created all the edible and potentially all the medical things that are needed, and this is desperately needed because Kai has made it back from the first encampment bloodied, poisoned, and in dire straits. It seems that he encountered some sort of parasite that bit him and started sucking his fluids out like a vampire, and they're not sure what it was, but then they are sure what there was, or whatever, and he needs medical attention. The most exciting thing about that, really, is that the first medical attention is provided by the flying dinosaurs, which Varian and these guys called GIFs. Can't remember why. Doesn't matter. They see Kai's condition and they bring these thick sap-filled leaves, which when they're put on the punctures, they save his life. But he's still fevered and sick for most of this novel. On her way back to the encampment, Varian encounters a young man of human stock who turns out to be the descendant of the mutineers. And this was, up until that point, I was really enjoying this book. I thought the pacing was better. I thought the concepts were stronger. I thought the action was far more intriguing. When Varian encounters, what's his name? Igar, I found that encounter excruciatingly childish and the behaviour childlike. And the whole thing just seemed idiotic. Spoilers from here on. Lots of them. I don't think it really matters. You're either going to enjoy this book or you're not going to enjoy it, irrespective of whether you know what happens or not. But no more soft spoilers. So Varian encounters Igar, whatever. And the first thing that happened, he's fleeing from a Tyrannosaurus Rex. We still haven't heard a single dinosaur name that's helpful, but we can tell it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex, right? Little handy things to pick one's teeth. And he's fleeing from it on foot. He's got no modern weapons and no modern accoutrements whatsoever. She lands by him. Instead of being in any right honest, she gives him a fake name and a fake destination. She says she's come off a ship that's just landed in the system. He claims that he comes from a group of people who were abandoned there. He knows nothing about the mutiny, and he doesn't believe that there were any other people in the party aside from the heavy worlders who are his ancestors. He is, I think, the grandson of the mutineers, giving our party the first hint of any sort of timeline. I nearly DNF'd. Varian invoking discipline so she can fight with this young guy, and then they're both strutting and posing. It's just really, really icky, in my opinion. Totally my opinion. Probably people will love it. Girl boss defeats strong young man. Even though she's just come out of cryosleep. Whatever. Girl boss ahead. And that sets the tone for one thing that I really didn't like about this book in general. In the first book, our primary focus, not our narrator, but our primary third-party focus is Kai. And I didn't despise Kai. He wasn't a strong character. You never saw that much of him, really. But it was a character for a story to happen around. This time we get Varian as the main. And honestly, I came to despise the nasty little twit. Because her boyfriend, she and Kai are meant to be in a relationship. And I'm not going to say for a second that the first book posed a believable relationship. I think they kissed each other platonically on the cheek once. That's their relationship. So it wasn't believable. But she spends this whole book mourning over how sad it is that Kai's sick and weak and has fever, and how she doesn't like him and isn't attracted to him anymore, when she's got a fine, young muscular Agar guy as a comparison. Agar's an asshole, by the way. But apparently the muscles score over the assholeness, which makes me think that Varian also is an asshole. She's also a poor court co-leader. She has no leadership abilities, and I don't think she's got very much. She's meant to be this super duper exobiologist who's been doing zoology since she was a child with her parents, but yeah, no. Anne McCaffrey did not do well with Varian, I'm just going to say. So we have this embarrassing little interlude, and then we've got Tor, by the way, the Thek has vanished. No one knows if he's coming back, what he's going to do for the survivors, if anything, so they start making their own way. And then, all of a sudden, everything lands. They go to visit the mutineers. Descendants, only one actual mutineer is still alive. He doesn't recognise Varian. There's a whole heap of discipline stuff there that is kind of interesting. And next thing you know, we see that the survivors have built this landing pod. And as readers who know a bit about the series, we realise that Dinosaur Planet flows into Planet Pirates. And it's clear that the heavy worlders, and it's hinted pretty strongly throughout this book and the last one, that the heavy worlders are pirating planets. They are landing on them and establishing colonies, so on planets that aren't open for colonization and haven't been authorized for it, so that when someone from the FSP finally discovers them, they can't kick them off because they've been there too long. And it's clear that that's what the heavy worlders are doing here. They've built a huge landing area, and there's a lot of discussion, jaw-waggling from between Lunzi, who isn't just a medic, she's obviously more than a medic, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, and Kai when he's conscious enough to speak, and Varian inside her head, which I could have done with less. And then next thing you know, you've got things landing everywhere. You've got the Thek landing en masse, though no one can really speak to the Thek. You've got an FSP ship lands in response to a beacon. You've got a colony ship that's landed in the heavy worlders landing stage. And everything gets really complicated. And actually quite interesting. From then on, you've got so many different people, and you've got I'm not going to say characters, but you've got lots of different people with different goals and lots of things happening. We don't have to put up with any more of the annoying Agar, or very little in fact. And the history of the planet is finally solved. Because the thing about Dinosaur Planet in the first book that we get no resolution on is that animals from Earth's Mesozoic can't be on this third stage sun planet way out in the middle of nowhere. And that the dinosaurs themselves and the Earth species are incompatible with some of the other species that is there. So there's something weird happening, and we finally found out what it is. It has to do with the Theks, and it's really interesting. When I reached that part of the book, I finally did remember that I had actually read it before, because the ending is really good, and I really liked it. Now, so one thing, a note that I left for myself on a receipt, if you please, here is one thing that I found really interesting as someone with a bioscience background, is that when this book was written in, was it 87? I've forgotten already. A poor memory is a terrible thing. 84. In 84, when this was written, there was still debate about the cause of the dinosaur era ending. And I hadn't remembered that. I didn't start studying until later than that, and by the time I started studying, there's very little debate that the mass extinctions happened as a result of the meteorite strike and the encompassing darkness that is so well described in some other books by Riley Black. However, when this was published, apparently there was still a lot of debate on what exactly had caused it. And that debate comes through when various scientists debate the different theories that were still current, apparently, in 84. Climate change was one of them. A storm that obscured the sun, so they got that right, but they didn't know the cause of that obscuring of the sun. So that was good. I really enjoyed that fact. Now let's go back to the elephant, or rather the flying dinosaur in the room. Halfway through, I still had no closure on what that dinosaur was, which was when I happened to be watching a review of another YouTuber, which I will, I hope, remember to link below, and Jeff's Cave of Cool Books, and he did this review on the magnificent book of dinosaurs which he found in some superstore over in Japan. And my first indication of what this flying dinosaur might be came from that. So no kudos to Anne McCaffrey for that one. In that book it talks about a Quetzalcoatlus, the name based on a South American name for tailless fixed-winged being? No, Quetzalcoatl, the serpent god of the Aztecs. That's it. And that was a late Cretaceous dinosaur, and it was quite a large dinosaur. It might have gone up to 25.8 meters, they're hypothesizing. So it was pretty huge, but when you look at the pictures, you've got that shape that McCaffrey describes, including two wings that are very mobile and seem to work on joints, have got digits at one joint, and a neck that's obviously extendable. There are many points in favor of that. However, finally, on page 210 of the second book, Anne McCaffrey, someone must have nudged her in the ribs and said, "You've got to tell us what this dinosaur is meant to be, right?" So here, she finally says that it is a Pteranodon, which actually, when you Google it, is remarkably similar to the Quetzalcoatl one, only it's from a different era and it doesn't grow quite as large. Both of them, by the way, are North American flyers. I think the Pteranodon was the first North American, not dinosaur, it was the first of a particular class of dinosaur found in North America instead of in Europe. Anyway, multiple species come and go. It could well be that in the 80s, when this was written, both of those two species were the same. But I don't believe that the eras that they're described as belonging to overlap. I think that one was right at the end of the Cretaceous era, just before the Great Extinction, and I think the other one was earlier. Anyhow, so that was Survivors Dinosaur Planet 2. This is the third book that I've read for Dinovember. And I don't regret that I've read them. I'm going to keep them. They're in good condition, a really nice condition, a really nice artwork. I have to say, I think I like the artwork on the first book more than I like the artwork on the second one. This one's okay, except for the... yeah, it's okay. I'm going to take a short break from dinosaurs and read something else, which actually I've finished reading it and will be posting a review in a couple of days. But there may be a bit of a gap in my reviews after that. So one of the things I do in my private life is I join a company called Ocean Crusaders. I'll provide a link below. We get plastic and debris out of oceans and waterways and off beaches. It's a big organization. There's a 4-ton truck or whatever, and I'm going to be going up to Bundaberg and cleaning with them. In the very unlikely event that you are watching from southeast Queensland and you would like to join us, there are openings on the crew to come out with us and do something good for the ocean and the marine creatures that live in it. on this trip, I'll be busy. I won't be reading very much, but when I do go, what I'm going to be going next for November is The Dinosaur Heresies by Robert Baker. This is a book that I have read a couple of times. The first time I read it was when I was at uni studying bioscience, and it's a bit of a book. There may be a few days with no review, but I have not left YouTube. I have not left November. I will be back. Have a great day. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate it, and read good books.